Just another quiet camping trip, or so they thought. They said something disturbingly pale with long fingers was watching them from the mouth of a cave. They went into the woods looking for peace, but these two came out with a story no one wanted to believe. But here's the unsettling part. Across the country near Hauser Lake, another man met something strikingly similar. Different forests, different men, same nightmare. So, what exactly is moving out there in the dark? Let's find out. Welcome to Weird Encounters, a place where the ordinary fades into shadow and the unexplainable comes alive. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and become part of our ever-growing community of the curious. My name is Mark. I'm 38, and I live outside of Greensburg, Pennsylvania. My cousin Ryan is a few years older than me, and we've always been close. We grew up fishing the Laurel Highlands and hiking around Ohiopyle when we were teenagers. Neither of us are hardcore survival guys or anything, but we know our way around the woods better than most people in our families. What I'm writing about happened in the Laurel Highlands last fall, near the stretch of land between Ohiopyle State Park and the Laurel Highlands Hiking Trail. Not on any official trail, though. This was deeper in the backcountry, off one of the logging roads south of Farmington. The whole reason we went out there was just because life had been stressful for both of us, and we thought a quiet camping weekend would help clear our heads. But it didn't. What we found out there, what followed us, and what came out of that cave, changed the way I look at that entire region. I used to love those woods, but now I won't step foot on that side of the mountain again. I also want you to understand something right away. I'm not dramatic. I'm not trying to make a movie out of this. I'm writing this the same way I told the police, the forest ranger, and my own wife. They all gave me the same look, like I'd seen something, but they weren't sure they believed what I was saying. Ryan picked me up early on a Friday morning. We drove down Route 31, cut onto 381 toward Ohiopyle, then headed deeper into the woods along a dirt road we found on the Maps app. The road wasn't marked, just one of those unmaintained lanes full of ruts and mud patches. It looked like a place where hunters parked during deer season, though no one else was around at that time. We had our backpacks, a small tent, a cooler, and just enough gear for a simple 2-night trip. The plan was to hike a few miles in, find a clearing, set up camp, and just relax. Maybe explore a little. The weather was perfect. Early fall. Cool enough that bugs weren't bad, but warm enough to not need jackets. We parked near the end of the road, where a fallen tree blocked further vehicle access. Everything looked peaceful. The woods were bright and open, that nice mix of mountain laurel and hardwoods that makes the Laurel Highlands feel different from other forests. Birds were loud. There was a slight breeze. Nothing felt strange. We walked maybe 3 miles off trail, mostly following a natural ridge that sloped south. I remember thinking how quiet it was getting compared to the area closer to the road. Different kind of quiet. The kind where your ears feel like they're adjusting. We found a great little flat spot near a cluster of boulders. We set up the tent, got a small fire going, ate sandwiches, and just talked. No weird feelings, no sounds, nothing. The first day was completely normal. It was around dusk when I first noticed it, maybe a little after 7 p.m. Ryan and I were sitting by the fire, half joking about who'd get eaten by a bear first, when I heard something behind us, farther out in the trees. It wasn't a twig snapping. It was heavier than that, a single dull thud, like something putting its weight down. Ryan heard it too, because he stopped talking mid-sentence. He turned his head, listening. I asked, "Deer?" He shrugged, but looked unsure. "Maybe." That sounded heavy, though. We waited, but nothing followed. No running, no movement, no second sound. Just quiet. After a minute or so, he laughed it off, but I could tell he didn't feel right about it. I didn't either. The sound didn't seem like an animal taking a step. It was too solid, too deliberate. Still, we tried not to think much of it. The fire made us feel better, and eventually we got tired and crawled into the tent. I wish we'd listened to our instincts and left right then. Sometime after midnight, I woke up because I heard something outside the tent. At first, I thought it was branches rubbing together in the wind, but it was too close, too rhythmic. It sounded like breathing. Slow, steady breathing just outside the nylon wall behind my head. I held my own breath, trying to hear better. The fire had burned low, so everything looked dim. I could barely make out Ryan's shape next to me. The breathing continued. Soft, but definitely not human. A wet sound to it, almost like when an animal has mucus in its nose. I nudged Ryan. He whispered, "You hear that too?" "Yeah." We didn't move. Didn't unzip the tent. Didn't make a sound. The breathing lasted maybe 20 seconds, then stopped. And then we heard footsteps, slow ones, walking around us in a half circle. We stayed still until the steps faded into the distance. Neither of us slept again until morning. When daylight came, everything felt less threatening. We left the tent and looked around the site. There were tracks, but not the kind you'd expect. They weren't boot prints, and they weren't bear or deer. They were long, narrow, almost human-shaped, but wrong. The toes looked elongated, like whatever it was gripped the ground as it walked. Ryan crouched over them, studying the prints. "I don't like this," he said. We talked about leaving, but both of us felt stupid packing up just because of some weird tracks and nighttime noises. People always say hikers overreact, and I didn't want to be one of them. So we convinced ourselves it was probably just some animal with a messed up foot or something. That was a mistake we paid for later. Around late morning, we decided to hike farther along the ridge, mostly just exploring. Ryan always liked finding odd rock formations, and the Laurel Highlands have plenty of them. The trail we made was slow going because of the dense laurel thickets in some areas, but eventually we reached a section where the ridge dipped into a small valley. About halfway down, we saw a darker patch among the rocks. A hole. Not huge, maybe 4 feet tall at the opening, but big enough for a person to crouch and walk inside. "That's a cave," Ryan said. I thought it was more like a crevice at first, but when we got closer, we saw it went back farther than we could see without a light. Everything in me told me to leave it alone, but Ryan wanted to check it out. Not go inside, just look. I should have stopped him. I should never have agreed to walk toward it. But when nothing bad has actually happened yet, it's hard to justify fear. So we stepped closer. The opening smelled wrong. Earthy, but sour too. Like something had been stored inside too long. There were scratch marks along the stone near the entrance. Not claw marks like a bear, but long, thin grooves. Parallel. Repeated. "This feels like a den," I said. "A den for what?" he asked. We looked at each other, both thinking the same thing. There aren't any predators out here that should dig or live in a cave like this. At least not ones big enough to make tracks the size of the ones we saw. Ryan took one step closer and leaned down to look inside, and that's when I heard it. Not breathing this time, a shift, a scrape, like something moving against stone, slowly, almost cautiously. I whispered, "Ryan, step back." He froze. Inside the darkness, maybe 10 or 15 feet back, something moved again. I could barely make out its shape, not a full body, just part of a head leaning forward, catching the dim light. Its skin looked pale, like it hadn't seen daylight in years. The eyes were the worst part, huge, black, reflective. Ryan whispered, "Do you see that?" "Yes, step back right now." He took one step backward, and the thing inside the cave shifted forward. Not fast, not attacking, but studying us. I didn't breathe. Its hand came into view next. Long fingers, wrong joints. It touched the floor of the cave like it was deciding whether to come out. That broke me. "Go," I said. "Go now." We backed away slowly at first, but once we got 10 steps away, we turned and walked quickly up the ridge. Neither of us spoke for a long time. We knew then something lived in that cave, and it wasn't supposed to exist. It was maybe an hour later when things really went wrong. We were back near camp, gathering our stuff to leave. We weren't arguing or panicking, but we both knew we shouldn't stay out there another night. While Ryan was stuffing the tent into its bag, I heard something behind us. Not walking this time. Running. Fast. "Ryan, move!" Before he could react, something slammed into him from behind. Not fully knocking him down, but pushing him forward hard enough that he stumbled. I saw his face twist in pain. I yelled and turned toward whatever hit him, but all I caught was a blur. Pale skin, long limbs, fast as hell, darting back into the brush. Ryan fell to his knees, holding his shoulder. "It hit me," he gasped. "It actually hit me." I pulled him up and dragged him close to the fire pit area, even though the fire was long dead. I didn't know what else to do. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely grip my pack. "Mark," he said, "we need to go, right now." We didn't even bother packing the rest of our gear. We grabbed what mattered, our phones, water, wallets, and started moving as fast as Ryan could handle. We weren't thinking strategy. We weren't thinking direction. We just wanted distance from that cave. But panic makes you stupid, and we didn't realize until too late that we'd veered off the ridgeline and into a thick laurel patch. Everything looked the same. No markers, no clear direction. We weren't lost yet, but we weren't heading straight back to the car either. And that's when we heard it again, above us this time, on the ridge. A low, deep sound, not a growl, not a roar, a call. Almost like it was alerting something, or more than one something. We froze when we heard that noise. It carried across the trees in this long, rising pitch. Not human, not any animal I knew. It didn't even sound like it came from a throat. More like air forced through something that wasn't built right. Ryan leaned into me, whispering, "It's calling to something." I know. Another call came, same tone but farther left. Then another, lower and shorter to the right. There were at least 3 of them, all along the ridge, all above us. We weren't in their way. We were in their territory. The laurel thicket around us made it impossible to see more than 10 feet. That somehow made everything worse. You can try to run from something you can see, but running blind through mountain laurel is a nightmare. Branches at eye level, roots everywhere, ground uneven. Ryan said, "Go downhill, just go. Cars northwest, but downhill leads to the road eventually." He sounded like he was convincing himself, not me. We moved fast, pushing through the brush. Ryan kept one arm tight across his chest, holding the shoulder where that thing hit him. He was paler than usual, sweating hard. But he kept moving. We didn't hear the creatures for a few minutes. That silence was almost stranger than the calls. The woods were dead still. No birds, no insects, no wind pushing through the laurel. Just us, and knowing they were somewhere close. Then, a crack of branches behind us. We both turned, nothing in sight. "Keep going," I said. We pushed forward again, harder. We broke out of the thicket into a small clearing. The ground dipped into a little depression full of ferns. Visibility was better, but I couldn't shake the feeling we were exposed. Ryan pointed toward a faint drainage gully. "There, follow that." We started down it, sliding on the damp leaves. That's when I saw it. Up the slope, half hidden behind a fallen tree, something crouched low, pale, long-limbed, face angled toward us. Its eyes reflected just the tiniest bit of light, like a dog's at night. But these eyes didn't blink. They were locked on us. "Don't run," I whispered. Ryan didn't hear me. He slipped on the wet leaves and half fell. The movement must have triggered something in the creature, because it straightened a few inches, tense and focused. I saw its hand grip the log in front of it. Long fingers tightening, joints bending the wrong direction. Then the creature made a sound so soft that I felt it more than I heard it. A clicking, slow and steady, almost like tapping teeth together. its head tilted slightly, then again the other way, like it was studying angles, distances. Ryan whispered, "Holy God, don't look at it. Just move." But he couldn't take his eyes off it, neither could I. The thing wasn't big in the way a bear is big. It was tall, maybe around our height or a bit more, but the limbs were wrong, too thin, too long. The way it crouched made its arms look like they might touch the ground if it fully stood. But the worst part? It wasn't afraid of us at all, not even curious. It looked like something that had already made up its mind. The creature shifted again, leaning forward. I grabbed Ryan by his uninjured arm. "Go! Now!" We stumbled down the drainage gully, sliding over rocks, grabbing onto roots. Behind us, the creature let out a short, sharp sound, almost like a bark. Then branches snapped above us. Another one. I didn't look back. I could feel it. That cold pressure in your spine when something is right behind you. We weren't running so much as falling downhill in a controlled panic. Ryan kept stumbling, and I kept yanking him back up. The forest blurred, flashes of green, brown, dark soil, the slant of daylight through the trees. Every few seconds, something behind us would snap a branch or kick loose stones. Not sprinting, not charging, just following, herding. It wanted us to keep going. It wanted us somewhere. And we were too panicked to realize where until it was almost too late. We didn't notice it until we were right on top of it. The drainage gully popped us out onto a flat patch of ground surrounded by rocks. At first, I thought it was just a boulder field, but then I saw the opening. Another cave, bigger than the first one, maybe 6 feet tall at the entrance. I stopped so fast Ryan crashed into my back. "No," I said. "No, no, no, we're not going in there." But behind us, the forest went silent again. Too silent. Ryan turned, his voice shaking. "Mark." I turned too. Something moved through the trees, staying just out of full view, pale skin slipping between trunks, one shape, then another behind it. Two, at least two. Ryan grabbed my arm. "If we go wide around the rocks..." A third shape moved to the left. We were surrounded, not close enough to grab us, but close enough that any direction except backward, toward the cave, would pass too near to one of them. I could barely breathe. Ryan whispered, "They're forcing us in." "I know. We go in, we're dead." "I know that too." "Then what do we do?" I looked around, searching for anything we could use as a weapon, a large stick, a rock, something. But the ground was covered in wet leaves, nothing solid. A soft clicking sound started again. 2 creatures making it at once. A third answered from behind a tree. They weren't rushing us. They were waiting, guiding. My stomach dropped when I realized the cave wasn't just a den, it was a trap. Ryan whispered, "We go around the left, fast. Don't stop." He didn't wait for me to answer. He bolted left, half running, half limping. I sprinted after him. For a moment, I thought maybe we could slip past. Then something pale blurred down the slope. It hit me hard in the side, knocking the wind out of me. I crashed into a rock, pain exploding along my ribs. I rolled onto my back just in time to see one of them standing over me, not fully standing, half crouched, but close enough that I could see its skin clearly, like stretched thin hide with veins showing beneath. No hair, just pale, almost translucent skin. Its mouth was slightly open, not wide, not snarling, just open. And inside its teeth were small and sharp. Many of them. Too many. It leaned down toward me. I kicked at its knee, not to hurt it, just to make space, and it jerked its leg back, more annoyed than injured. Ryan shouted my name. The creature's head snapped toward him. That moment of distraction saved my life. I scrambled backward, pushing myself with my heels across the dirt until I could stand. Another creature moved to block Ryan's escape. They weren't trying to kill us, not yet. They were herding us, closer and closer to the cave. Ryan looked at me, terror in his face. "We have to go inside." I shook my head. "No, We don't have a choice. Another creature shifted its weight, ready to pounce. We had seconds, maybe. And that's how it happened. We backed into the cave, not because we wanted to, but because whatever lived inside it was better than dying right there under those trees. At least, that's what I told myself. I was wrong. The temperature dropped the second we stepped under the rock overhang. It felt like walking into a cooler, dry, stale air. The entrance sloped down gently at first, then leveled out into a sort of narrow corridor. Just enough room for the two of us to stand side by side if we pressed against each other. Behind us, I could hear movement, not charging, just shifting, like they were adjusting their positions at the entrance. Watching, blocking the exit. Ryan whispered, "Keep the phone light off until we're deeper. I don't want to piss it off." "It?" I said. He didn't answer. We moved maybe 20 feet in. The darkness swallowed everything. Without light, it felt like we were floating in a void. The air was thicker the farther in we went, almost humid, even though the cave itself felt cold. The ground under our boots wasn't smooth rock. It was rougher, uneven, like gravel or broken stone. Every step made a crunch that echoed down the tunnel. I used my hand to follow the right wall, trying to get a sense of the direction. It curved slightly inward, forming a bend. The air smelled worse as we moved, more sour, mixed with something metallic. We stopped when we heard a sound behind us, a scrape, slow, long, like claws dragging lightly over stone. Ryan said, "They're keeping us in here." "I know." That answered nothing, but it was the only thing I could manage. My voice sounded shaky and thin. My breathing was louder than I wanted it to be. Eventually, Ryan turned on his phone flashlight. The beam stretched down the passage, illuminating rough stone walls and a floor littered with small rocks. The air shimmered slightly in the light, like dust or moisture suspended in the stillness. We walked deeper. I checked my phone. No signal. Not even one bar. Ryan kept glancing over his shoulder, his breath quick and shallow. He was hurting, I could see that, but he wouldn't say anything. He never did. "Stop," he said suddenly. I froze. At first I didn't see it. Then, in the flashlight beam, something on the ground glistened. Bones. Not a pile, not arranged, just scattered across the floor in a way that made it clear they weren't placed there by nature. Some were broken, some intact. Some were small, animals for sure, but others were longer, thicker, not human-looking, but close. Skulls that were too long in the back, ribs that had been cracked open, femur-like bones with deep grooves cut through them. Not tooth marks, claw marks. "What the hell is this place?" I said. Ryan swallowed. A nest, or a feeding spot. The thought made me dizzy. I had to put my hand on the wall to steady myself. My fingers brushed against something sticky. I jerked my hand back. It was dark reddish-brown. Ryan's light revealed smears along the wall, old streaks, dried and layered. My throat tightened. "Ryan," I said quietly, "we need to get out of here." He nodded, but he didn't move. We weren't alone in there. The sound came again, dragging, shifting, followed by a low click, 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 the same sound the things outside had made. But this one was deeper, heavier, more deliberate. Ryan raised the phone light higher, aiming into the darkness ahead. At first, the light didn't catch anything, just more rock and shadows. Then something reflected faintly. 2 eyes, large, black, still, set wide apart, low to the ground, staring straight at us. "Back up," I whispered. But when we tried to take a step backward, something scraped near the entrance. Not inside yet, but close enough to warn us. We were trapped between whatever was deeper inside and whatever guarded the exit. The eyes blinked slowly, just once. Then a shape shifted behind them. A long, pale arm extended into the beam of the light, fingers splaying across the stone floor. Those fingers were longer than mine by twice. The joints bent at angles I didn't recognize. The tips of them ended in dark, thick nails. Not claws like a cat, more like curved chisels. It pulled itself forward slightly, and the light finally hit its face. Even now, I have trouble describing it without feeling sick. The skin was almost translucent, stretched tight, showing veins beneath. The mouth was small at first glance, but when it opened a little, I saw rows of thin, sharp teeth, like needles. The eyes didn't shine like an animal's with light. They were flat, matte, absorbing everything. It wasn't the same size as the ones outside. This one was bigger, broader, older maybe. Ryan stepped closer to me without taking his eyes off it. Then the creature made a sound, a low vibrating hum that grew into a clicking rhythm, faster each second. The stone around us seemed to pulse with it. The feeling got into my chest, rattling something deep in me. My knees weakened. Ryan whispered, "It's calling them." He was right. Behind us, from the entrance, came an answering click, two shorter ones and a long one. I don't know what that meant, but the creature in front of us shifted its weight and rose slightly higher, coming up on long limbs. "Ryan," I whispered, "we're dead." "No," he said quietly. "We're not dying here." He said it with a certainty I didn't feel at all. Then he squeezed my shoulder. "Run on my count." I stared at him. "Run where?" He looked at the larger creature, then at the entrance. "Past them." "That's insane." "Maybe, but staying here is suicide." The larger creature took another step toward us, fingers scraping softly across the stone. Ryan whispered, "3. My heart was pounding so hard I felt it in my teeth. 2. Something outside the entrance scraped again, another creature shifting into position. 1. We ran. I don't remember the first few steps, only the sound of our boots hitting the floor and the creatures clicking in response. The air behind us shifted, like something lunging forward. I heard Ryan shout something, but his voice was drowned out by a screech from the larger creature. High, sharp, unnatural. The entrance came into view, a smear of faint daylight. But the moment I saw it, something tall and pale moved to block it. One of them stood just inside the threshold, crouched low, ready to catch us. Ryan didn't slow down. He barreled straight into it, slamming his shoulder into its midsection. Even injured, the hit threw the creature off balance enough that it stumbled sideways. I didn't think. I just reacted. I grabbed a loose rock the size of a football near my foot and smashed it into the creature's head as hard as I could. The sound was sickening, like hitting wet sand, but the creature jerked away, disoriented. "Go!" Ryan yelled. We dove through the entrance. The daylight hit my eyes so hard it blinded me for a second. The cold outside air felt like a slap. Behind us, the creatures screamed, an awful chorus that echoed off the rocks. I felt one of them grab the back of my pack, but the strap snapped, and I fell forward out of its reach. Ryan grabbed my arm and pulled. We ran. Branches whipped our faces. Rocks tore at our hands and knees as we scrambled up the slope away from the cave. I didn't look back. I didn't dare. The only reason we got away was daylight. They didn't want to leave the cave mouth, not fully, not for long. But they followed, just far enough to keep pressure on us, driving us downhill, keeping us moving. We weren't out of danger, not even close. We ran downhill without any sense of direction, just away from the cave, away from those things. The ground was steep, covered in wet leaves that made every step a gamble. We slipped more than we ran, grabbing at trees to slow ourselves. Behind us, I could hear them, not shouting or roaring, just that awful clicking, fast, urgent, moving in patterns like they were signaling each other. I don't think they wanted to leave the cave area completely, but they were okay with pushing us, keeping us from circling back upward. They kept pace with us, staying out of sight but close enough that we could hear when one of them shifted its weight or snapped a branch. Ryan stumbled again, falling hard onto his right knee. "Get up!" I grabbed his arm. He winced but forced himself up. His face was pale and soaked with sweat. His injured shoulder hung lower than the other, and I could tell he was close to passing out. "I'm fine," he gasped, though it was obvious he wasn't. We kept moving, crashing through another laurel patch. The branches clawed at us, slowing us down. Every time one whipped back, I swore I heard something behind them, like those things were watching through the leaves. When we finally broke free into a more open area, Ryan bent over with his hands on his knees. "We can't keep up this pace," he said. I said, "We don't have a choice." Ryan replied, "We'll kill ourselves before they have to." "That's better than letting them drag us back," I said. He didn't argue, didn't need to. At that moment, another clicking call echoed from above, sharper this time. Ryan whispered, "They're pissed." I didn't want to believe creatures like that could have emotions, but it sure sounded like frustration to me. It happened too fast for me to react. We reached a steep drop-off we didn't see until the last second. The ground tapered suddenly into a downward slope covered in damp moss. I lost my footing and slid. Ryan tried to catch me, but his injured shoulder gave out. He fell harder. I slid maybe 20 feet, scraping my hands and forearms on the rocks. Ryan went even farther, tumbling head over heels until he hit a fallen tree with a heavy thud. I scrambled to him. "Ryan, hey, Ryan!" He groaned. His leg was twisted slightly and he winced when I touched it. "My ankle," he breathed. "I can't stand on it." I swallowed hard. "You have to." He shook his head. "I'll slow you down." "We're not doing that. We're both getting out." He didn't argue, but he didn't look convinced either. I got him up and he wrapped an arm around me, hopping on his good leg while using me for balance. That's when we heard something new. Not clicking, not scraping. A low growl, deep and resonant, from the direction we'd fallen from. The sound vibrated through the ground beneath us. I didn't turn around to look. "Move," I whispered. We limped forward as fast as we could, half dragging, half hopping. Every few seconds we heard movement above us, parallel to our path but sticking to the high ground. They were shadowing us, waiting for us to collapse, waiting for an opening. I felt sick realizing what they were doing, exhausting us, weakening us, keeping us running until we physically couldn't anymore. Predators, not just opportunistic feeders, hunters. We came out into a wide clearing, an area where a storm must have come through at some point. Dozens of fallen trees lay in different directions, making it look like a chaotic tangle of wood and roots. Ryan collapsed to the ground. "I need just a minute," he said. I looked around. No obvious path forward, no landmarks, no sounds of a road or river. But the logs gave me an idea. We could climb onto them, move across the fallen trunks, make ourselves harder to reach. I helped Ryan onto a large log. He sat there breathing hard while I climbed onto a nearby trunk and scanned the edges of the clearing. That's when I saw it. One of the creatures crouched behind a broken stump, just watching. Another shifted near a cluster of uprooted trees, and then a third, farther back, clinging to the side of a rock like a spider. They were waiting for us to break. "Ryan," I whispered, "they're closing in." He didn't answer. When I turned, he was leaning sideways, barely conscious, his eyes heavy, his skin pale. He was going into shock. I slapped his face lightly. "Hey, stay with me. I need you awake." He blinked slowly. The growl came again, closer. I stood on the log, arms out, trying to make myself look bigger, even though I knew it wouldn't matter. One of the creatures stepped into the clearing fully, not running, not charging, just approaching, deliberate, confident. It was taller than the others, maybe the same one from the deeper cave. Its limbs were long enough that its hands nearly brushed the ground as it walked, its eyes locked onto us. I felt utterly powerless. "Ryan," I whispered, "we have to run now." "I can't," He said, "You have to." "But I can't." Ryan said, "I didn't know what else to do." I grabbed a thick branch lying across one of the logs. It wasn't a real weapon, but it was the only thing I had. The creature stepped onto a fallen tree, crawling forward with unsettling smoothness. The moment it leaned in, ready to lunge, a horn sounded in the distance, a long, deep truck horn. The creature froze. Another horn followed, then the faint hum of an engine. The road. We were close to a road. I grabbed Ryan and hauled him up, adrenaline drowning out everything else. The creature hissed, its first real vocal sound, and retreated slightly. Not far, but enough that it lost its line of attack. "We're going," I said. And somehow, Ryan found one last burst of strength, and we moved. At the hospital, I told the sheriff everything. He didn't laugh, didn't dismiss me, but the look on his face said he didn't believe a word. They sent a small search group to check the ridge. They found our gear at the campsite, but they never found the cave entrance itself, not where we said it was, not anywhere nearby. The area was mapped by state foresters 3 different times that month. Nothing. Like the cave moved or wasn't meant to be found again. They wrote the whole thing up as a wild animal encounter and subsequent fall injury. Ryan refuses to talk about it. He won't go near the Laurel Highlands anymore. I haven't slept more than a few hours a night since, and sometimes, when the house is quiet, I still hear the clicking. Sorry for the quick interruption. I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you for being part of Weird Encounters. Lately, the channel hasn't been shown as much across this platform, so if you're enjoying this story, please take a second to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Your support really helps new listeners discover these stories and keeps the channel going strong. My name is Daniel Reeves. I'm 37, born and raised in Spokane, Washington, and I honestly never thought I'd be writing something like this to anyone, let alone a channel about strange encounters. I work as a plumbing contractor. I'm married, 2 kids, and the most exciting thing in my life up until a few months ago was replacing heating lines in older homes in the South Hill area. So this feels weird to even type out. I guess the best way to start is by saying I'm not someone who jumps to conclusions about creatures or spirits or anything like that. I've spent most of my life hiking and fishing around northern Idaho and eastern Washington, places like Priest River, Liberty Lake, Spirit Lake, and over around Hauser Lake where this whole thing happened. I've run into black bears, moose, a cougar once when I was younger. Nothing supernatural, nothing that made me question what's out there. But this, whatever I saw, whatever was hunting me, it wasn't anything I've ever heard of. And the worst part is that I don't know how close it came to ending my life, because there's a moment in this whole thing where I lost track of time, and I can't explain why. Anyway, let me start from the beginning, how I ended up near the Hauser Lake cut. It was early September. Kids were back in school. Work was a little slow, so I figured I'd take a half-day Friday and drive east toward Hauser Lake in Idaho to scout out a small area for grouse hunting. My Uncle Mike and I were planning to hunt in a couple weeks, so I wanted to see if the logging roads off West Hauser Lake Road were still open. The last time we were out that way 2 years ago, some of the old spur roads had collapsed because of flooding. I was alone, which I normally don't do much anymore, but I felt comfortable in that area since it wasn't too deep into the wild. My plan was simple. Drive the old Hauser Lake cut, walk one of the side trails for about a mile, come back before sunset. I parked at the pull-off near a half-broken sign that said, "No unauthorized vehicles beyond this point." The sky was that hazy pale blue you get before fall. It felt peaceful. I ate half a sandwich before heading up the small trail, shotgun slung over my shoulder because grouse can pop up anywhere. Nothing felt strange at first. Actually, everything felt normal to the point of boring. The trail had overgrown more than I remembered. The brush around it smelled a bit damp from rain the night before. I walked maybe a quarter mile when I heard the first thing that seemed off. Something like coughing, but not a person coughing, more like an animal trying to exhale with something stuck in its throat. It only lasted a second, so I figured it was nothing. I kept walking. 5 minutes later, something knocked on a tree about 40 yards off the trail. 3 slow knocks, not like a woodpecker, not like branches falling. It was deliberate, slow, hollow. I froze and listened, expecting maybe a bear or something. Nothing moved. Then I realized the woods had gone quieter than usual. No birds rustling, no insects buzzing. Even the breeze seemed to die. That was the moment I should have turned around. But I didn't. I still had sunlight, maybe an hour and a half left. I told myself I'd go another few hundred yards and then loop back. I regret that part the most. The first signs. Something was wrong. I came up on an area where the trail curved around a ridge. There was a drop-off to my right and a slope up to my left. As I stepped around a fallen log, I noticed footprints in the soft dirt. Except they weren't footprints the way I think of them. They were long, narrow, almost human-shaped, but too long, maybe 15 inches or more. And the toes were thin and pointed forward in a way that didn't look right. Not spread out like a human foot would be, and spaced far apart like whatever made them had a long stride. The part that bothered me most was that the footprints sunk deeper at the front, like the weight was on the toes rather than the heel. I followed them with my eyes and saw that they came from down the ridge. They crossed the trail and continued up the slope. Something about that didn't feel like any animal I knew. I crouched down to look closely, and that's when I heard the second sound that didn't make sense. A low clicking. Click, 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 click. Not fast, not like a bug, slower. Almost like a tongue hitting the roof of a mouth, but stronger. Or like someone tapping 2 pieces of wood together, but muffled. I stood up slowly, shotgun in hand. The clicking stopped. I didn't see anything, but I felt watched. And that's not a thing I usually say lightly. It felt like something was waiting for me to move again. I remember whispering, "Nope, nope," under my breath and slowly backed down the trail the way I came. That's when the forest exploded with movement somewhere behind me. Branches cracked. Something big slid down the ridge, not running upright, not charging, more like sliding or scrambling in a controlled way. I couldn't see it, but I could hear it moving with direction, with intent, and it was moving toward me. My heart slammed in my chest and I started walking faster, trying not to break into a full run because that seemed stupid, but also trying not to stay still. Then the clicking came back. This time it was closer, much closer. When I reached the spot where the trail straightened out, I looked back, and I saw something move between 2 trees. It was fast, like a pale blur, and low to the ground at first. Then it rose upright for just a second before darting behind another tree. I didn't get a good look at it, but what I did see didn't fit anything I know. It was too thin, too long, and too pale for any animal in these woods. The weirdest part was the shape of its arms. They hung low, almost to where its knees should have been. I started speed walking now, almost jogging. The woods around me felt wrong, like everything was holding its breath. Every sound seemed to echo, my footsteps, my breathing, the snapping branches behind me. Then I heard something that froze me cold. It mimicked me, not perfectly, not like a parrot or anything, but when I exhaled sharply, it made a similar noise right after. When I stepped on a branch, something behind me stepped on something too, but harder, louder, not copying me exactly, but reacting. Almost like it was trying to get a rise out of me. I wanted to run so badly, but I still thought maybe I could walk fast enough to get to the car and not draw it closer. My shotgun wasn't even feeling like a comfort anymore. I didn't think it would matter. The clicking grew louder, and then I swear to you, I heard something like a low groan. Not human, not animal. somewhere between a child trying to catch a breath and something imitating a human voice. It was crouched behind a fallen tree, maybe 30 feet away, pale skin stretched too tight over what looked like an almost human frame, but the limbs were wrong. The elbows bent backward slightly, not enough to be broken, but enough to look unnatural. It had long fingers curled over the wood, and the head was too large for the neck. Its eyes were black. Not shiny, just black. It wasn't staring at me directly. It tilted its head sideways like it was examining what I might do next. Then it smiled. Not wide, not dramatic. Just a small curl of its lip that showed 2 rows of teeth that didn't match human teeth. They were thin, needle-like, but packed tightly. The clicking came from it. Its tongue moved strangely, tapping something inside its mouth. I raised my shotgun, hands shaking so hard I almost dropped it. The creature didn't flinch. It stayed crouched, staring. Then it mimicked me again, this time making a small exhale like a laugh. My chest tightened. I genuinely thought I was about to die. Suddenly, the creature dropped lower behind the log like it was preparing to launch. I fired. The blast echoed through the woods and birds exploded into the air around us. The log splintered, but the creature moved so fast I didn't hit it. It darted to the right, disappearing behind a ridge. I reloaded in a panic and ran. This part is hard to describe because I don't remember everything. I ran down the slope, slipping, grabbing roots, trying to follow anything that looked like a trail. At some point, I lost my footing and hit the ground. I don't know how long I was out, if I was out at all. It felt like blinking and suddenly realizing I was somewhere completely different. I was at the entrance of a small cave. A cave I swear was not there before. It looked like a narrow crack in the hillside, not tall enough to stand in. There was a smell coming from it, like wet stone mixed with something sour. I could hear soft movements inside, but not like footsteps, more like skin dragging lightly against rock. I scrambled away as fast as I could. I don't think I screamed, but my throat burned like I had. The woods didn't look familiar. The light was dimmer. My phone said it was 7:42 p.m. It should have only been around 6:15. I was missing over an hour of time. I don't know if I was unconscious or if something else happened. But the idea that the cave was new, like it hadn't been there earlier, that part haunts me. Whatever lived inside it. The creature. I think that was its den. I don't know how close it came to dragging me inside. When I finally found a logging road, I couldn't tell if it was the same one I came up on. Everything felt wrong. The sky looked purple-gray with the last bit of sunset, and the shadows seemed longer than they should have been. As I walked, I heard the clicking again, behind me, closer. I didn't turn around this time because I was afraid if I saw it again I'd freeze or make a mistake. I just kept walking, then jogging, then running. The clicking sped up with me. It wasn't quiet anymore. It was loud, like it wanted me to hear it. At one point, I heard something slam into a tree behind me so hard it shook loose branches onto the road. I could hear breathing that wasn't mine. It was frantic, quick breaths, like something excited. When I finally saw the reflection of my truck's rear window through the trees, I almost collapsed. I don't remember unlocking the door. I don't remember turning the engine over. I just remember flooring it back down Hauser Lake Road until I hit Highway 53. Only when I crossed back into Washington did I finally break down and start yelling. Not crying, just yelling. My throat hurt for 2 days afterward. I didn't call the police, but I did call Idaho Fish and Game anonymously. I told them I'd seen something strange, a large pale animal that acted aggressively. The guy on the phone paused way too long. Then he said something like, "We've had a few calls in that area, probably just a sick cougar or maybe a bear with mange." But the tone in his voice didn't match what he said. It was flat, rehearsed, like he'd said it before and didn't believe it. I asked if they ever found tracks like long, narrow prints. He paused again, then said, "Stay out of that area for a while. The logging companies are asking people not to go up there anyway." He didn't explain why. My uncle thinks I got turned around and panicked. He doesn't believe the creature part, but he knows I saw something because he says he's never heard fear in my voice like that. My wife doesn't talk about it. She asked me once if I hit my head out there, and I told her no. I don't think she wants to know more. Whatever that thing was, I don't think it was just some mutated animal. I think it watches the trails for people who wander too far from the roads. And I think the cave I found wasn't a natural cave. I think it digs or opens those places up. And I think it comes out when it wants something. I don't know if I barely escaped, or if it let me go. And so, another strange encounter fades away. A trick of the mind, or something far more unsettling. That's for you to decide. Thank you so much for watching my stories. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Your support is what keeps this channel going.